Was the 11th anniversary really that bad? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We got another Dokkan Battle video. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at all the hubbub surrounding the 11th anniversary, talking about the overall rankings of the anniversary. We're going to take a look at some of the opinions of you guys and others on Twitter about the 11th anniversary and finalize the video with our own ranking of the anniversary among other anniversaries in Dokkan Battle. So let's go ahead and get started. So I got the idea to do this from another Dokkan YouTuber, I'm Zombie here, tagged me in a post here to go ahead and rank the anniversary. And before I did that, I felt like it was really imperative that, right, I look at what the community is saying. I already kind of have my thoughts and feelings about it, but I think it's curious to see where the community has at on this. So I also posed the question on Discord. So if you're in our Discord and you were able to participate, thank you for that. We'll be checking out what you had to say on this. But we're going to start with the thread here created by, the YouTuber Minato's Flash of the overall rankings on the anniversary. I went through the polls here, and this is actually very interesting. So we're going to break down each one and talk about sort of each section of the anniversary and people's thoughts on it. So let's start with the first thing, right? The very first piece of the anniversary was during the countdown celebration, where we got the easy A for STR Carnival Goku, right? The Five Guys, right? Seems like most people rated him either good or underwhelming. And it's really funny because he dropped in the midst of the Bio Broly and Cellmax red zones, where Cellmax is just insanely oppressive, especially for a character like him being type disadvantage. But he is actually surprisingly good throughout the anniversary content, even through, right, some of the stages that released toward at the ends. But a lot of people viewed him as underwhelming. So not a great start to the anniversary, right? If people are already coming in with a bad taste in their mouth about an easy A. Now this one is funny, right? The Daima Goku, STR Daima Goku, because now looking back, people are saying he was great, but y'all remember, I remember, I'm not gonna let people forget, people rated him terribly. He was the worst LR ever. That EX Super never procs. You can't get, there was all kinds of excuses for people being unable to use this card. And yet now the majority, with over 3,000 votes, are saying, no, actually he's great. It's like, this is a strange one to me, because this is certainly not how the people were acting when he released. So it's very, very interesting that change up there. But I mean, it's good. I'm glad people finally came around and realized that they were way overblowing the key thing. So really good there. Dokkan Fest LR Vegeta, most people are rated him as good, pretty happy with him. But again, that's also interesting because, again, in the beginning, right, people were saying this dude was way better than Goku. So it's kind of funny that flipped, and most people kind of viewed Daima Vegeta as good. So part one, right, in terms of characters, right, I mean, what is this? Out of 6,000 votes for the two headliners, right? Most people rated it, right, good to great. So that's good, right? That means people don't view it too negatively. And I think that's really important to see, that people don't view the units too negatively overall, right, in terms of the quality of the anniversary, right? People are actually pretty happy with the units. Moving on, right, the next we have the Majin Du, who was the banner unit for Goku. Most people rate him good or great, which is great. I think so I mean, he's a banner unit. I don't think too many people are going to be rating him too much, because not everybody pulled all the way for the banner units. But out of the 3,000 votes, almost 50% rated him great, right? So people were happy with the banner units. Even login units, most people voted him good, right? For a login unit, you can't expect much. So that's a good sign if people are rating the login unit as good. 96% of people rate Carnival Goku getting into the Easy A's, AGL Kai Goku as great. That should be an obvious. He's probably one of the best Easy A's we've seen in a very long time, so that's a good sign. Moving on to the Carnival Gohan. This is an interesting one because honestly, he's not that far off of Kai Goku, but Kai Goku kind of steals the show. But most people rated him as good, which is great. Fizz Trunks Super Easy A. This one is funny because this is not just the Resident Trunks bias, playing into here. I legitimatately believe people just did not use this guy, right? That's the only explanation I can come to for people believing he was underwhelming. I saw some straight up trash slander on him, and it's like, he may not be anything crazy. He's exactly what a Super Easy A should be, right? Like he's support, he's floating, he's tanking, right? He's doing everything he needs to do, right? His only issue was Cell Max, I think, at the time of his release, and I just think it's funny. I think, and a lot of the people that I talked to when I tried to bring up this, right, they're like, oh, well, I only have him at 55%, so that's what I'm rating him at. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, the Super Easy A of the unit from 10 years ago is going to be a bit underwhelming at 55% because they designed them around 100%. We've seen this with literally every single Super Easy A. So, yeah. But I also think a lot of it had to do with, right, Kai Goku being as good as he was, right? He kind of overshadowed the other two to the point where, right, he did feel underwhelming. Moving on, right, the free-to-play unit, Majin Ku, most people viewed him as good, right? And that's a really good thing, right? Like, so just talking about all the free-to-play units together, while we didn't get a free-to-play LR, right, pretty much all of the units, all of the free units except for Tamagami number 3 were rated pretty well. Like, they're actually all kind of great to good. So that is a great sign for the anniversary when most of the free options are coming out as usable on teams. Granted, mostly the Diamond team, but still. So that brings us into part 2, right? Part 2 brings us to the Fizz UI Goku and Blue Evolution Vegeta, and the Ent LR Vegeta and Goku Super Saiyan 4, right? And with 96% of people rating UI as great, and Vegeta and Goku Super Saiyan 4 as great, as 71%. That's pretty good, right? That's a good sign that, again, both units are viewed majority as great. So, if we take everything into consideration, right, out of the 6,000 votes for those, right, 3,000, or actually, right, we're 3,000 each-ish, right? We're seeing some pretty positive reactions to the units themselves from the anniversary, right? So we can't really say that the problem was the units, because it seems like the majority of people were actually happy with them, right? These weren't bad choices. These weren't unhyped choices, right? They seem to be great choices for an anniversary. Legic, right, viewed as great, right? If you've used Legic, trust me, he's great. He's actually a really good banner unit, especially on Deborah's team, by the way. Tech Pan, another great Easy A. Super Ant Vegeta, another great Super Easy A, right? Underwhelming ROF Blues. I view them more as good. I don't think they're quite overwhelming. I think there was a lot of people over hating them for no reason at all, other than just like straight up not using them, because they weren't nearly as bad as people were letting on. But I mean, either way, they're still viewed as good, which I guess is great, right? Or like nobody's viewing them as bad, which is a good sign, right? There are very few units that actually achieve bad status, right? Like underwhelming doesn't even mean that things were that bad, right? So still a good sign looking at the anniversary as a whole, right? The Dokkan Fest LR Easy A's for the 8th anniversary LRs, right? Viewed as great on both ends. I know people have some issues with the STR duo. I think that they were still great, but overall, the majority voted them as great. And then next with the UI Goku, should be obvious, right? Most people view him as great. So that's the units, right? So overwhelmingly, the units, whether Easy A, Super Easy A, or brand new releases, were overwhelmingly good to great throughout this anniversary, which is really good, right? You don't usually have that. Like, if you think back to 10th anniversary, for example, right? Just last year, we walked out of 10th anniversary with maybe, right, if you include the free units, right, we walked in Easy A's, we walked out of there with maybe 4 to 5 usable units out of the 20 plus that we got out of that anniversary, right? Even less that survived the GDC power creep. So I mean, that shows us that we're actually in a really good position now in terms of the units comparatively to other anniversaries, at least in terms of people's perceptions, right? Now, on to the content, right? Because this is the other big part of what's going to play into our ranking here, right? Most people voted the Special Battle Part 1 stages as underwhelming, but the Special Battle Part 2s as good. Now, this is interesting because I actually do think the Special Battle Part 1, especially the Vegeta, is actually a little bit harder than the Special Battle Part 2. Not to say that neither one are difficult. All are actually pretty good difficulty. I think the issue with them is they aren't oppressive like Rose, which was doing a turn 1 AoE and locking, right? But they're on the same level as Rose. They really are. It doesn't have those oppressive mechanics, which honestly leads me, I've had this theory for a while, but this leads me to believe that people honestly people don't actually care about stages being difficult. They want they legitimately want stages to be toxic, right? Because these stages are on par with last year's GDC content, which, number one, is what we wanted, right? We did not want major power creep to come with 11th anniversary because we got such a huge jump at GDC last year and we got so many good characters. It would suck for them to go away in 5 months, and they did that for us, right? They kept it at that level. So it's really funny to see people vote these as underwhelming, because it's exactly what we were hoping for, and when it came to anniversary content, right? Who Dares Heated Showdown, underwhelming. It's to be expected though for this one. I voted it underwhelming, but it's to be expected for this stage. This is like the little mini medium difficulty content just to get free stones. It wasn't anything crazy. They always have these kinds of stages in here, so it was nothing to be too worried about. Now this one was interesting, the Awakened Supreme Supreme Demon King. I voted it as good because I thought the concept was there. I thought it was great. I think they needed to do a little more work with the actual timing of the actual timing of the phases, right? Because it was almost always in a manner that would prevent you from using, say, like Tech Daima Goku's active, because of the way the shift played. I think they needed to work a little more on the timing, as well as restricting the mission to Daima was really bad for a lot of players. So I think that probably played a role in people's perception, because if you didn't pull all the Daima units, it was a beast. If you watch my video on this, right, doing it without the Daima units, it's insane. So that also probably played a piece there. The Greatest Tours, this is interesting. It's almost a 37 split for good and great. I'm more on the side of good because I do think the first stage was a bit undertuned. The first stage was perfect, but too long. Omega and 17 were just the right amount of difficulty for what it was asking you to do. I think the previous stages, right, Rildo and Baby, they needed to be on the same level as 17 and Omega, and it would have been fine for stage 1. Stage 2 was... The problem is a lot of the different fights within the stage are great. They're amazing. But Jiren is heavily undertuned. It's extremely oppressive, and I think my problem with Jiren is not necessarily Jiren himself, but the community's response to Jiren, because the game straight up told us, hey, we designed this fight for you to use these specific items. We need you to use them. And then the community said, nah, we ain't gonna do that, and we're gonna rate the units poorly based on their performance here. And it's like, I'm so glad we listened. Because I mean, that really is that is really my beef with the stage. Jaren was not designed for us to use it the way we were using it before it left, and I think that's probably where I'm at on that. As far as the event itself, I don't like that it's going away. Even if I don't like the boss, I don't like that it's going away. I do think that it should have stayed, right? Just there is some enjoyment in testing units there, even if I don't see a necessity in using it as a ranking, considering how it's designed. But it does suck that it's going away, and I can understand why people would be upset about that. With the Red Zone, I'm going to put these both in the same category, right? The Red Zone GT and Universal Survival Saga remixes. They're both great stages. Again, sucks that they are leaving. At least we have until Sunday. It may be something that they readjust with this new mode. Who knows? But for now, it is a little bit disappointing. Moving on, the player's choice. A lot of people viewed it as great, and this one's funny because there was a lot of complaining on Twitter when the JP version dropped, but it was actually pretty good, all things considered. I do really like the final stage. I'm still trying to get that Deborah run, no item. I've got a really good team for that, and that video should be coming soon. And then ending it off with the final count, and with 44% of just about 3,000 votes, 2,700 votes, 44% voted the anniversary underwhelming. And this is an interesting thing, right? Because, right, when you look overall at everything here, majority of people voted the units and events as good to great. Very few things actually achieved the underwhelming status. So what went wrong, right? Well, a lot of people will argue the problem was pacing, right? And the reality is, I think somebody broke it down. I know nobody's gonna like me saying this, but I'm pretty sure Rody broke it down. And pacing is actually pretty on par with other anniversaries in terms of release times. I think what it came down to is release amounts, right? We got spoiled last year by 10th anniversary with a lot of drops happening all simultaneously. And the way this anniversary works is what they basically did is that every new drop, they dropped everything instead of pacing it out, right? So if we got an easy A drop, everything was dropped with that easy A drop, and then there'd be nothing the rest of the 2 weeks, right? Same with the release of new units, right? We would get the release of new units, we'd get 1 or 2 drops then for that part 2, and then nothing until a week and a half later with the easy A's. So, you know, I think it was just in part of them putting too much things in one place and not enough in another. But even then, as some others have pointed out, it wasn't too far off in terms of other anniversaries. Total Stone Count was on par with 9th anniversary by the end of it. So it really begs the question, why do people view it as underwhelming? Well, why don't we go ahead and take a look at our Discord and see what you guys have to say about that. So let's go ahead and let's flip on over here. All right, so we are in our Discord here, and let's take a look. Let's see what some of you guys had to say about the 11th anniversary. So already, first thing, lack of content, right? But immediately from, what is that, Konaku? And then Amari comes back with, right, not lack of content, but horrible pacing, right? It was dumped off at the end. They need to stop doing that, yeah. And again, it was 2 things. They either dumped it all at the end or right at the very beginning, right? It was a really weird way that they chose to pace it. And I think the reason is they assumed we weren't going to just spam the redo of the red zones all on day 1, which is what most people did. So I do think that had a lot to do with it, right? Moving on, right? If we didn't have artificial life form red zone, don't know what we would have done this anniversary. Yeah, I mean, I do feel like that did keep a lot of the busyness going there. But again, this is also where I feel like people kind of overlooked the special battle stage because they were actually pretty fun, right? From Ichigo here, right? Personally speaking, would have liked the slowly release of the initial red zone, like really week 1 for GT bosses, and so forth as the weeks gone by. Yeah, they definitely should not have held the Red Zone remixes until the end. They should have done that with the rest of the celebration. Okay. Horrible summon rates. Yeah, no, I hate to be that guy, but there's not. It's the same rates as always, right? Chef, the units were the highlight, but everything else was lackluster. This is the first anniversary at 0 incentive to log in. Overall, it was pretty boring. The Gambler, lack of content's being super hard, like Power Cup worse than 9th anniversary or 7th anniversary. See, this one's interesting because this is fun. I don't mean to be rude, but this is fundamentally untrue. With the exception of Jiren, this is fundamentally untrue, right? The power creep is barely more than from 7th to 8th anniversary, and even then it's not that much, because right, a lot of the content you can use last year's anniversary units for. You can still use the GDC units for, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and say that, yeah, I do have to say that that's just fundamentally untrue in terms of power creep. Not good easy A's, unfortunately. Yeah, I have to say no to that one too, right? Overall, like, even if you think that in exchange Goku and Vegeta were bad, let's say that you think that, overall the rest of the ECAs were pretty incredible. And you compare that to 10th anniversary, where 8 of the 12 ECAs were subpar at best. This seems like a really big nitpick specifically at those two. Carnival LR EZAs from 8th anniversary was not good. Okay, like this dude has got to be trolling. I mean this in the most respectful way possible. There's no way you think Kai Goku and Gohan are not good. Lackluster. Okay, in what regard? Over 1,200 stones the 6th anniversary, not including the God Event. Meanwhile, 8% of the content is not much. All right, so in the 6th anniversary, not including the God's Event. Meanwhile, completed 8, and it's not much. So this person probably did not do the count, because it's actually more than that. It's actually, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up here. The amount. Yeah, so we're just going to go ahead and pull this up over here, right? So if you guys remember, Toon actually did a video on this a little while ago, right? Just up to the part before the part EX, right? And the new red zones, and all of the extra stuff that came with the ending of the anniversary, including the extra easy A's, right? We were at, all right, 1,000, as little as 1,000 to 1,400 without the with the countdown, somewhere around 1150, 747 to 1152 with the countdown. And that is, and the reason for that is because there was that chance time stones you could get, right? The chest you could get, which you could get some people got as much as 300 stones, some people got like 100, right? It depended on your luck, right? So that's why there is a shift, but you're still looking at anywhere between 1,000 to 1,400 stones total. So it is more than previous, even when you factor that chance, right? It's still more than previous anniversary. So I really don't know where this is coming from, the people thinking we got less stones here. Getting shafted. Okay, well, that answers that question, right? This is pretty much, right? You can always tell people's opinion on an anniversary depending on how bad they got shafted on it, right? 8th anniversary is my biggest shaft. I hate that anniversary, so yeah, okay. It all makes sense now. All right, Pan EZA was all right, and better than all right, but all right. Lack of tickets. Yes, they did give less tickets than previous time. They didn't do the GDC thing where it was like a guaranteed 44%, whatever. But they did do the regular tickets, and those were pretty much the same amount as we usually get the rainbow tickets. So that one wasn't too crazy. But I guess they weren't giving them out every week like they used to. I guess that's what made it different, right? Tried to do everything all at once, made it a mess. I mean, I don't disagree there, right? The pacing was kind of all 8th year Carnival Easy A events being made into one stage instead of two. Yeah, that's a bummer. But we knew they were going to do that. They've been doing this for a while now to cut down on free-to-play stones. So that's not a problem specific to the anniversary. This has been going on since last year, and people were denying that it was happening, and it was essentially removing stones. And now even more so with the removal of right now, even more so with the removal of the events that came, right, they're slowly getting rid of permanently available stones, right? So yeah, I can see why that would put a sour taste in people's mouth, but that's not a problem exclusive to the anniversary. This has been happening since Golden Week last year, or April last year. All right, love the 8th DFE LR EZAs. They were Lifesaver. EZA UI Goku is good. Loved him as well. Pity, I don't know how that works. 22 multis and I didn't get the new unit. Over 15 multis on in LR SSJ4 Vegeta. Yeah, it's 2,500 stones. That's how you get pity, right? That's essentially what it is. All right, screwing up Trunks' SCZA. Again, this really screams of people who did not use it, because it wasn't that bad. All right, part 2 had Fizz LR UI Goku, and guess who did an EZA transforming Angel Frieza. I mean, it's a good thing he didn't. He's not on anybody's lead, so I don't understand why we would want an EZA for a character who is not on any lead. That happened last year during 10th anniversary. People hated it, all right? All right, hate Dokkan for screwing me over, so getting shafted, right? That seems to be what, yeah, this is exactly where the opinion is coming from. And I mean this in the most respectful way possible, but the opinion seems to be stemming from not pulling the units. Okay, moving on. Heart Striker. This anniversary was very divisive. Think the type of content was honestly fine. The amount of pacing and it had was bad. Yeah, yeah, I kind of agree with that. Right, the content itself is great. The problem was the pacing, right? So many empty spaces in between that really could have been boring there. It's honestly a shame. I think Dokkan has the manpower issue. We want a certain amount of content, and I'm sure Akatsuki wants to make it. The resources are given to the timeline of the live service that is Dokkan. It's unfortunate that they can't. Dokkan has a manpower issue. Character choices are fine. It's not way too safe, looking at part 2, but honestly, even if it's great if safe choices, right? People do need to stop having this entitlement. Things need to be finished without items. For them to consider content to be fair, items and memories and all that are a part of the game, just like the numbers dished out by the character. Overall, it's fine anniversary. Serviceable, amazing. Yeah, so a couple things here, right? So number one, it definitely is a manpower issue. We pretty much know, and if the leak from the inside is true, we pretty much know that they had an issue with the arts and the animations for the part 2 characters, right? It seems like those were supposed to be the part 1 characters, and they had to shift things to part 2, and as such had to shift a lot of the content as well to accommodate that, right? Because if you really look at what we got with the part 2, if all of that had dropped and paced properly in part 1, it probably wouldn't be as bad as part 2 not having as much content and having the simple Daima stuff, right? Because that's usually how it goes. So I definitely think that's part of the issue, right? A lot of their resources were being put on those new animations and getting them out and ready, not as much focus on the content, right? As far as the items sentiment goes, right? That's not how Dokkan does things, right? So if you're one of those who believes that items, like you need to be able to beat an item, a stage without an item for it to count for anything. Understand that Dokkan doesn't build their stages that way, right? They do not build stages without items in mind. Every fight that you go into is built with the assumption that you're going to use some type of item, right? So if a stage feels oppressive, it's because you're not playing the mechanics, right? You're not doing what they assumed you were gonna do, which is use a Whis, or use an attack lowering item or use something to help. You have to remember that this game is designed for people who aren't trying to game the RNG system, but just want to play and see funny animations, right? So that's something to consider. And they even told us straight up with the Jiren fight that that's what you needed to use it. Okay, no, and he sucked in my opinion. No explanation why. Okay, there. Moving on. Content was okay. There we go. Content was spread out to an insane degree, less EZAs than usual, using Ninth Annie as a basis. That I don't understand because we have more EZAs than Ninth Annie. Even if you include the sub EZAs, we have more EZAs than Ninth Annie. So that I actually don't understand that, right? Because Ninth Annie only had STR UI Goku, Broly Trio, Luke Hyoken and Evoken, and the 2 6-year EZAs, plus 2 sub EZAs, right? 11th anniversary has 4 extra EZAs on that. So I honestly don't understand that. I mean, this is just straight up false. Okay. Variety of content where stones were stingier. Again, we showed with Toon's video, they were not. No free-to-play LR. I get that. Yeah, that is kind of a bummer, but I'm also not complaining because Tamagami number 1's pretty amazing. So at least they're all usable. The diamond units, looking at you for who have an interesting design animations, while the 4s are leader skill merchants and are gambling. This is, yeah. So I mean, I don't understand what's a leader skill merchant. They're the Dokkan Battle. What does that even mean? Like, that's what they're, the Dokkan Fest LR. They're gonna have the best leader skill in the game, right? Like that's usually how the anniversary LR works, right? They're gonna have that leader skill that's gonna carry you forward. I just don't understand that. I really don't understand this one. This one's bothering me. All right, moving on. Okay. Ace. Okay, so okay, so talking about the events here, right? Got 8 stages, all meaningfully hard. End of movie 2 red zones, right? But nobody cared about the movie 2 red zones, right? So if we compare that, that's just one of the throwaway events from 11th anniversary here too, right? Because nobody cared about those. Nobody cared about the movie 2 red zones. And not all stages were meaningfully hard. Nobody cared about any of the stages up until Trunks. And even then, once we got Gogeta and Beast, nobody cared about the Trunks stage anymore. Not to say it wasn't hard when it released, though. More easy A's. Again, that is fundamentally untrue, right? There are more easy A's and super easy A's during this celebration than there were during 9th anniversary. Bootangs being relevant all year round, so we're just going to ignore. I mean, we don't know. This is an interesting one, right? Because we don't know who's going to be relevant as the year moves forward. But looking at the EZAs, I can tell you right now, Kai Goku is probably going to be pretty relevant for the rest of the year. Same with the NUI Goku, unless every stage from now on is dodge canceling. So it's really hard to say. And at the time that Bootangs released, nobody thought that. Everybody thought Bootangs sucked because he literally had no team. So this is just, I mean, it's really interesting. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of revisionist history going around with this one here. All right, good free-to-play LR. Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, no free-to-play LR here definitely is not good, but and Beerus was good, but Beerus is also, right, he was an exception, right? Because outside of Roshi, most of the free-to-play LRs weren't that great during Anniversary, right? The Gohan, Goten, and Trunks weren't that great. The Bobbity wasn't that great, although his EZA is pretty great. Super EZA is pretty great. Okay, moving on. Crotale, out of all the anniversaries since the time I started playing, 9th and 10th were the best. Okay. All right, let's move on. All right, so Goku, Ichigo here. right? And it was really good. The only thing that sucks with the unit, MUI SBSB tag should have been the part 1, right? But we do kind of understand that why that happens. The reason they're part 2 is probably because the animations weren't ready. Content, as much as other anniversaries, is a bit less than the 10th, but the 10th was a huge milestone, so we don't count that. Content should have been more spread out. This, again, I definitely agree with that. I don't think the content was as spread out as it could have been, right? Like, I think if they did that, it probably wouldn't feel as bad as it is. I can say for a fact that Deborah's celebration has better content distribution. I mean, it's only 2 weeks, so they got to fit everything in 2 weeks. So that's also why, right? 3, the red zone revamp. It shouldn't have been all stages at once. They should have gradually added more. Yeah, like if they had literally started part 2 with the red zone revamp, I think it would have been a lot better instead of waiting. Like if they just started part 2 with the revamp and dropped 1 stage each week, would have been much better. I definitely agree with that, right? But aside from the pacing, it was a good celebration. Part 2 hard carry. Part 1 was miserable. Okay. Moving on. All right, Anakin, I went trend here. Would have sacrificed Grand Tours for Legendary Goku event, Legendary Vegeta Daima edition, right? Maybe some new anniversary battle. I think an SCCA for AGL SSB. We needed more than in UI. Oh yeah, especially Realm Gods definitely needed that, right? But also, where are the also the free-to-play units are very good. Regarding the EZAs, I would give my SCCA Trunks his defense when receiving a hit because Vegeta's family could really use more slot 1 options. Maybe give the year 8 to 24 key for the first turn like Ulton. Yeah, that would definitely help him. Yeah. Okay. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the part 2 was one of, if not the best landing spots for Saiyan Saga, Goku, and Vegeta Redemption. Well, Vegeta would have been great for Omega, Baby, and Goma too, but pipe dreams. Yeah. Okay, so, but seems like overall he's got a positive spin on the anniversary, although things that he would have preferred were different. Amari here, pacing was a downside. They have yet to figure this out for anniversaries, despite GDC earlier in the year handling it perfectly. The stages should have been spread out properly, but they were leading to it feeling dead and dry. And the final burst in the end, which reportedly killed people's drive and hype. While I love the animations for the units, well, my biggest issue overall is design. All 4 of the units are extremely key hungry. They want 24 key, they want orbs, they need them. Only one creates orbs for 1 turn only, creating this reliance on orb changing like Tech Pan. And SSJ4s are the only ones who fully lead the 8th anniversary. But I guess what? They also want 24 key, meaning you're forced to run 2 tag 4s. Like, I mean, why wouldn't you? That's literally their lead. What do you mean forced to run? Like, I don't understand that. And then the 8th anniversary ECA is leading to 4 units who want orbs. The team feels so sluggish and unfun to run. I mean, well, their team is designed to be a stacking team, right? The burst team is Daima Goku's team, right? I can run them on Daima Goku's team for sure. I'd have Tech Pan and then free to play AGL Goku as my orb changer. Instead, just Pan for 1 turn from Vegeta. However, they'd be on 170, which feels really bad, missing out on 50% stats. The hated part of the anniversary is them. I was excited for them to run them. All other units for key sport, and it becomes a boring mess to run the team without anniversary units. And that's just really lame. I mean, I think the problem here is the Amari trying to run all of the units all on 1 team, right? That seems to be the issue, right? When the reality is, right, you don't really need that. Or there's nothing wrong with running an orb changer, right? There's plenty of good orb changers on both of these teams, right? And honestly, it's having run the 4s multiple times in some of the longer events, you really don't feel it as much as you do in the short events. The short events, you really do feel it. But in longer events, right, it's okay if you miss a turn of the EX super for that extra defense stack, right? You'll get the rainbow orbs eventually when your orb changer comes back around. So it's honestly not that bad, but I could definitely see in shorter events it being I can definitely see it being an issue there. Okay. Continuing on, just some conversations here. Okay, this person already said all of this, right? Okay, but again, I'm just gonna re-hit, right? In terms of the stone count and the amount of EZAs, right? That there were not more, right? Maybe more impactful, which I could definitely see. But people, out of the even then, out of the EZAs from the 9th anniversary, right? Who really did people continue to use? Nobody used SDR UI after his EZA. Nobody used Broly Trio outside of a few niche people. The Kaioken and Evolution Vegeta sort of fell off by Tech UI, and even then, most people weren't really using them that much. Especially by the time we got to Kid Buu Red Zone. So, I mean, that was just interesting. All right, let's move on. All right. Let's see. Like, it's really hard to keep up when they do all of them here. So I'm just going to go with the ones that were all together here. Right. All right. So ethanol. All right. It was pretty bad. Only one new unit. Wish got the others like last year. Okay. So this person's just talking about his experience. Okay. So Burf here, pros got both adult Daima Part 1 headliners, got GT and TOP, got busted Part 2 headliners, 4 strong free-to-play TURs, easy A's for the 8th years. Cons, uninspiring new mechanic, EX Coopers are cool, but Buhan had it before. I guess kind of is what that is, right? Content being directly tied to the new LRs, right? The missions, yeah, but they always do that to a degree, right? That's not exclusive to this anniversary. Content being insanely difficult, no items on bosses that have absurd attack building, slot 1 supers that stun you, tanky slot 1s, and phase 1 red zone omega. Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, so the, again, at this point here, right, the no items, right, I'm assuming this is talking about Jiren, and again, they design these fights assuming you're going to use them. So like, I really don't think complaining about a fight being too hard without items is a fault against it, because they didn't design it that way. Anyways, moving on, any LRs having wonky kits, right? Diamond Forku being key hungry, 3 being murdered by AoE's pre-super. Forcing Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta to get 3 rainbow orbs, 3 to 4 rainbow orbs. UI sign not having healing built into his supers, so the next unit dies when you're on 1 HP. And SSBE not having any defense pre-super. Yeah, well, so the thing with UI Goku, and I want to very quick, so a couple things on this, right? Like, AoEs are always going to be a thing. Not every unit is going to have a counter for that, right? That's just the thing, but, right? So if you play around that, he's fine. This, yes, I do agree. They should have kept it 2 or 3. Getting 4 is kind of rough with them. No lie there. But this, I learned very quickly, right? It's because he's not meant to be slot 1, right? He's meant to be slot 2, getting his EX super, where then that's not a problem. People just complaining about the int blue duo again. All right, anniversary has its flaws, but the units are strong. Some have problems that can screw you over in the long term, but the EZA quality is inconsistent. AGL Kai Goku is better than int Gohan. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you're gonna have some that are better than others, right? That doesn't mean the rest are bad just because Kai Goku is amazing. And I really don't get the hate people have for the NRF blues. I feel like we went out of our way to prove that people way overreacted, and people still want to consider them bad. It's kind of crazy. All right, moving on, right? Akil here. All right, so the only good parts of this anniversary were the units themselves and the EZAs. I still haven't forgiven Akatsuki for making Damagoku's animations the way they did, but he himself is great. My gripe with Damagoku is still the key mechanic. Even when you are 24 key, you're not guaranteed his max output to a 70% chance. I also don't like how part of his passive is locked to him being slot 1 when there are fights that can have straight up blast him in slot 1. They also should have made his additional guaranteed. No reason to lock that behind 70% chance as well. I also wish he had some sort of nullification or dodge mechanic like the Easy AZ duo. For supers, he can't handle. I mean, there aren't many though. That's the thing. There are very few he can't handle. Right? I mean, maybe Jiren, which is ignoring all of his defense, but there's very few supers he can't handle. Right? Especially post super. So that's just kind of weird. Daima Vegeta didn't like as much because they made him prone to both locking and AoEs. No complaints with part 2 units aside from the tag 4s. That's just so funny, right? You're gonna complain about Daima Goku's EX, but not the 4s, right? When the 4s in UI Goku have a significantly lower chance of proccing theirs. That's just, it's interesting. We'll say that. Also, I think they did a decent job with the EZAs. ROF blues are underrated. SEZA blue Vegeta is good. 8th EZAs are great. SEZA and UI is incredible. Biggest problems is that a lot of the fights aren't permanent, lack of content otherwise. Yeah, I do agree with that. And I think there's another problem with this, the content leaving, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with the anniversary, but more so them trying to remove permanently available stones. I personally enjoyed the Jiren fight, even though it was kind of unfair. It did give a little bit of a thrill, and it was incredibly satisfying when you got the no item run off, right? Even the Omega Tour fight was fun. I think the Red Zone redos were fun. So why did they make them limited time? Do they just want us to go back and bully artificial life forms, GDC content? Well, I assume the red zones are going to get added into something else, right? I think that's what they're going to do with those. So they'll probably be back in another form, right? I don't remember feeling like this in any other anniversary. Absolutely despise the EX super mechanic, by far the worst anniversary mechanic they've decided to add ever. So let's just add another layer of RNG on top of the already huge amount there is. Yeah. It can definitely problem. Also, where are the worldwide EZAs, Birdcoo and Cooler, the Super EZAs for the year 3s? They're really cheaped out there. 5 out of 10 anniversary. So, I mean, I think we kind of knew the worldwide EZAs weren't going to happen this year during this anniversary. I've been saying this for a while. Like, I would expect to see these during GDC from now on. Now that they sort of solidified the schedule, I would not expect them to see anniversary. I think the only reason we saw them during anniversary last year was because, well, I guess Buhan and Vegeta were also there, but I think it was majorly because it was 10 year. All right, lastly, Charisma here. Happy with the new characters and the EZAs. Only issue with the anniversary was the pacing and content, the lack of free-to-play LR. Majin Ku should have been a free-to-play LR. I wouldn't disagree with that. And the 5th anniversary with the 10th anniversary. I'm surprised not more people mention this, right? With the 5th banner with the EZAs on it, right? That was kind of lame, but it's not like that's something they haven't done before with the EZA banners, right? So, I mean, they used to do that a lot, so it's not like that's new. So, all right, so very, very interesting. So I guess what's left now is to rank them. All right, thank you all of you guys for your responses here. So let's go ahead, let's jump over to our ranking. All right, let's go ahead and let's start our ranking here. So let's start with let's just go ahead and get these out of the way. So I was not playing Dokkan during years 1 through 5. I started during Worldwide after 5th anniversary. So we're just going to go ahead and throw that I haven't been participating. So I'm only going to rank from years 6 to 11. Starting from the 1st anniversary I participated in, right? The 6th anniversary. This one was, it was pretty good. Content was there. Pacing was pretty good, right? Dropping new God stages every week, right? The units themselves were pretty good. I did manage to pull both units during that, so I got to test out the anniversary content with the new units. So honestly, I would probably put it at a B. The content was pretty good. This is back when LGE and for Global, the legendary GT Goku event were still pretty active, right? So a lot of people were still using that along with the God event for testing units. So I would honestly give this anniversary a B. All right. S rank, definitely going to go with for the 7th anniversary, right? Like And I think this one is mostly due to the units. Honestly, the units really carried that. The introduction of the red zone, despite the major power creep that came with it, it was definitely pretty darn. It was a pretty darn fun anniversary. The pacing was perfect in terms of the release of characters and events. Even if the part twos were a bit underwhelming, the part one really did carry that celebration. All right. 8th anniversary would probably put it at an A, right? It was a great celebration overall. 8th anniversary was pretty incredible use of their new standby mechanic. It really pushed your ability to use it compared to previous anniversaries with their new mechanics. So I really did like that. Being able to nuke bosses was crazy. Pacing was perfect. Content was a little less than other areas, but in terms of its release and its timing, usability, it was pretty good. Easy A's are kind of off though during the celebration. That's kind of why I drop it below that, but I do feel it was better than the 6th anniversary. 9th anniversary, right? I do agree with a lot of the people who claim 9th anniversary was probably one of the best anniversaries. Hands down, it was. It was definitely one of the best anniversaries. Overall, units were great. Easy A's were great. All right, pacing was tolerable. And the actual characters were just phenomenal, right? They lasted the entire year. Beast being one of the best LRs ever released, right? Really helped sell this anniversary. And then finally, we have the 10th anniversary from last year. I have a hard time placing this one because it was just so much. There is such a thing as too much. And while this was a huge milestone, I think it was too much, and a lot suffered because it was too much. So honestly, I would probably put it down here with 6th anniversary. Honestly, the units were hit or miss, right? Vegeta was great, Gogeta was great, Gohan was usable in Battle Hard and Formidable Foes, but Int Goku, Frieza, Blue Vegeta, right? Like, they barely had use, right? I mean, AGL Super Saiyan 4 Goku, probably the best aging out of all of the units. Most of the fights were a pain in the butt, right? Battle Hard and Formidable Foes had such great potential and ended up fumbling at the end by turning the final fight into a coin flip. You either can play the fight or you lose immediately because he AoE'd supered, right? And the Jiren boss sponge was just way too unfun, especially, right, throughout the year because they didn't give us anybody to match Vegito's power. So you're literally just waiting until you can launch Vegito, and that just wasn't fun for a lot of teams. So the content not being as fun, pacing, right? There's two opposites to pacing, right? One, there's pacing where it feels like everything is dry, and then the two, there's pacing where it's just everything all the time, all at once, and that's what 10th anniversary was. There was so much to do that honestly it was really hard to keep up, and it made it for me, it made it less enjoyable. Okay. And then we have 11th anniversary, right? This is a tough one. 11th anniversary, I would probably put with an A rank here. Out of the anniversaries I've played, it's when I sit back and look at it, it's really not that bad. The units ended up being great. All of the stages, in retrospect, actually ended up being great. All of the EZAs are pretty much usable. Even if you think the Int ROF Blues are complete trash, that's still 7 out of 8 EZAs that are usable. It's a better track record than most anniversaries, right? 8th anniversary had almost no usable EZAs. let's think about it until we got the 2 EZAs at the ends, right? So let's consider that, right? Consider that. I'd almost move it down just because of that, right? I might move it down here. 10th anniversary, right? People hated Namek Goku. People hated Frieza. People hated Buhan. People hated Cell. People hated almost every EZA that came out of that celebration, except for like Grade A Vegeta. And eventually people came around to Buhan. Namek Goku people eventually came around to by the time Festival dropped. But I mean, most people didn't like any of the EZAs that came out of 10th anniversary, right? So, you know, it's in a weird position, right? And I feel like the problem with 10th anniversary is the opposite problem that 11th anniversary is. You know what? I'll probably put them near the same, right? The problem with 10th anniversary is the same problem 11th anniversary has, but opposite, right? It's the pacing was too much, whereas 11th anniversary, right? The pacing was too little. All ended up being great at the end in retrospect, but while doing it, there were some problems, if that makes sense, right? So if I had to final rank the anniversaries I participated in, I would probably put 7 and 9 at S, 11 and 10 at A, and 6 and 8 at B is probably where I would final stand on it, right? I don't really think stone count matters here, right? Because that doesn't play into my enjoyment of the actual anniversaries, right? Although, right, obviously 10th anniversary would take it if that was the case. And I don't even care, right? The thing I don't even care much about is the quality of the ECAs, right? You take that with 7th anniversary. The ECAs weren't that great, aside from God Goku. That doesn't. It's really about how I enjoy the content I play. And I will say that out of all of the anniversaries, 7, 9, and 11, they're probably the content I enjoyed the most, to be completely honest. So, guys, that is it for our video. That is everything that I've wanted to talk about in conclusion to the 11th anniversary. I know this is a bit of a long video, but I needed it to be long. I needed you guys to really hear everything I had to say. I know I've been kind of out of commission for about a week or so, and I wanted to make sure we got this out there for you guys. So, guys, that is it for the video. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let us know, all right? If you didn't get to participate in the Discord conversation, right, about the 11th anniversary, and you want to make a comment, let us know in the comments down below your thoughts on the 11th anniversary. And why don't you go ahead and throw us up a tier list? How would you rank the 11th anniversary and with other anniversaries? Let us know in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.